Welcome back to class. We're going to do chapter 3, and the topic for chapter 3 today is victims and victimization. The victim's role in crime. Let's talk about victimology. It is the study of the victim's role in criminal event. Then victimologists, criminologists, these are criminologists who focus on the victims of crime. Cost of victimization, part 1. We have economic cost. It takes significant toll because many expenses are associated with each crime. We have direct cost, tangible cost, indirect, and intangible cost. Under the cost of victimization, part 2, a number of different methods have been developed to measure the cost of victimization. Catherine McAllister and Associates developed the complex statistical analysis. They look at the cost of society of an average murder is almost $9 million. Considering that about 14,000 Americans are the victims of murder each year, this crime alone costs the nation about $130 billion in losses every year. That's a lot. Personal cost of crime. We have the socio-emotional problems of crime, the way it affects people, severe emotional distress, increased relationship problems, disruptions at school or at work, anxiety and depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, otherwise known as PTSD, victim fear, and the victim blaming themselves. Legal cost. Crime victims are more likely to commit crime themselves. And then what does that lead to? Then we have a cycle of violence. The socio-ecology of victimization. Violent crimes more likely in open public areas, commercial establishments, daytime or early evening hour. That's when the crimes are being committed. And then we also have the seasonal variation. We have more crimes committed during the summertime than in the wintertime. Neighborhood characteristics, in other words, what goes on in your neighborhood? Like if you're living in a dilapidated, poor neighborhood, there's tendency for crimes to be committed over there all the time. And then we also have crime being committed in schools now. We have a lot of school shooting going on now with 14, 15-year-old, even 12-year-old taking gun to school to shoot their classmate. That's the age that we're in now. Let's look at the victim's household. Most of these victims live in urban area in the south and west, most vulnerable, especially neighborhood occupied by African American families, Latin American families. Homeowners are less vulnerable than renters. Crime rate declined, possibly due to population movement. Victim characteristics. What are the characteristics of the victims? We're going to look at the gender, the age, the social status, race and ethnicity, marital status, repeat victimization. Nature of victimization, part 4. Policies and issue in criminology. We're going to look at elder victims. Older adults face risk of financial, physical, and psychological abuse. These abuses often go undetected. 31% reported, and family members are often the perpetrator. You could have a grandfather or a father that is sick at the house, being taken care of by family member. And nowadays, when the family member tends to be overwhelmed by being the primary caretaker, some of them usually abuse their own family members, in some cases even leading to death. Rapidly increasing elder population has the potential for increased frequency of abuse incidents. Now let's look at the victims and their criminals. Males are more likely to be victimized by a stranger. Females are more likely to be victimized by a friend, an acquaintance, or an intimate partner. In other words, boyfriend, girlfriend. Most crimes were committed by a single offender over the age of 20. Crimes tend to be intraracial. A surprising number of violent crimes are committed by relatives or acquaintances. In other words, when we say crime tends to be intraracial, it's being like black people killing black people, committing crime against one another, or white people committing crimes against other white people. Let's look at theories of victimization. Under the theories of victimization, we have victim precipitation theory. This is where we see victims as active participants, passive precipitation, and then we look at personal theories. Research shows victims may have an impulsive personality. The next theory is called lifestyle theories. Here, high risk of lifestyles, college lifestyle may lead to crime. When we're talking about high risk lifestyle, maybe this is a guy or a lady that likes to go out and party every night and come home at 2 o'clock in the middle of the night, getting drunk, be on the street down there, and then there's tendency for somebody to want to rob you and do wrong against you. College lifestyle, kids on campus, partying at the sorority house, and they will invite some of their girls from the campus right there, and some of these girls will get raped at the sorority house. And after they got raped, they barely even know who raped them because they were drunk, and then they probably slipped some drug into their drink to numb them out so they can get raped. Criminal experiences victimization. The next theory is called deviant place theory. It has to do with honor codes. The next theories of victimization is routine activities theory. Under the routine activity theory, crime happens when there's a suitable target. Let me give you an example of a suitable target. Would be somebody that his neighbor knows he goes to work like about 8 in the morning and come home at 4 o'clock. They know your schedule, and they know when you're gone, you don't have no alarm in your house. You have some doors that you could easily push down to open. There are no dogs to guard the house for you. There are no closed circuit TV to look at whoever is trying to break into the house. So that makes it suitable for somebody to break in when you're not there. Capable guardians, and then you also have motivated offender. In other words, a motivated offender is somebody that seems to hey, I'll go in there and steal anyway, because they're not home this time of the day. They don't have no security system. So they are motivated because of the opportunity provided to them by the owner of the house or the building. It also see crime and everyday life routine system. Research support, we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about the routine activities and lifestyle further down. Let's look at the theories of the victimization. Everything I'm going to talk to you now leads to crime. What are the major premises of some of these theories of victimization. Under the routine activity theory, lack of capable guidance. In other words, police officers are not there, homeowners are not there, and the security system is not there. Then under the suitable target, in other words, what the victim knows they could steal from there. It includes costly jewelries, expensive cars, easily transportable goods like TV that they could take to a pawn shop and sell. Then, who are the motivated offenders? People like unemployed individuals, teenage boys, and the addict population in that neighborhood. Victim service program. We have victim witness assistance programs set up by some of these private agencies to help victims of crime, such as domestic violence victims. They have shelter for them to help the women all over Dallas and Fort Worth area. Victim compensation, where the government would provide some funds to help them settle down somewhere else. Victim advocates that takes care of the men and the women that are being abused at the shelter. And then during the trial, the victims are allowed to make victim impact statements. In other words, they talk about how the crime have affected their life and their family. We also look at public education, crisis intervention, victim offender reconciliation program, victim notification. Under some of these victim notification, like if a crime perpetrator or somebody found guilty of crime is sent to prison for rape, and when it's time to release them from prison, maybe during their first time coming up for parole at their parole hearing, then the state will notify the victim of what is going on, whether they want to be there at the parole hearing to object to the early release of that individual. And then we also have legal protection for victims. Victims' right. We have what is called Victims' Bill of Rights. The right to be notified of proceedings and the status of the defendant in the court. The right to be present at criminal justice proceedings. The right to make a statement at sentencing and to receive restitution from a convicted offender. The right to be consulted before a case is dismissed or a plea bargain entered. The right to a speedy trial. The victims also enjoy the right to keep the victim's information confidential. Victim advocates caring for the victim. We have a group or a lot of victim advocate agencies that takes care of the victims of crime. Self-protection is provided, and some of these victims learn under the self-protection, learn how to fight back. And some of them are learning to go to the gun range and buying guns and use it for protection. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of chapter 3